What does it take to create a vibrant, thriving life? First, the sad news is that Thoreau was right. Most people are leading quiet lives of desperation, lacking in meaning, fulfillment, and vitality. But we choose more. We choose to create extraordinary lives. And the Art of Vibrant Living show entertains you with inspiration, empowerment, and education to create your life into a masterpiece. It's time. Let's vibe up. Hello, hi, y'all. Daniel Aaron, your host. This is the Art of Vibrant Living show. We got an exciting, very cool show today. And first, the Art of Vibrant Living begs the question to you, are you living up to your most vibrant capability? Well, no, you're not. That's the bottom line, because you can't be, because there's always more. And the point of this show, our purpose here today, is to help you to grow into even greater vibrancy and success. So please do try this at home. You will get something from Eugenia today that will blow your mind. And it's only as good as putting it into practice in your life. So try something on, make a commitment, would you, right now, that you will take something from here and implement it in your life. If you would like to be in conversation with me, if I can be of support to you in creating more vibrancy and success, awesome. Send me a message. I'd love to connect. And let's get into this show today, because Eugenia Oganova is a business strategist, a marketing energetics coach with over 2 decades of experience. She's a self-made multimillionaire and clairvoyant. Yes, you heard that right. Eugenia has been featured on major platforms like Fox, NBC, CBS, USA Today, Brainz, and more than 100 other podcasts and publications. She's an internationally best-selling author of 4 books. The most recent one, Wealth by Soul Design, How to Leverage Your Unique Badass Inner Magic to Grow Your Spiritual Business into a multi-6 or 7-figure empire. How cool does that sound? Welcome to the show, Eugenia. Thank you for being with us.
Hi, Daniel. Thank you so much for having me here. I'm so looking forward to this conversation.
Yeah, well, we could talk for 6 hours just about the words in your bio. So many potent, powerful, and to the untrained eye, contradictory or paradoxical words. So maybe we'll get into that. First, though, since I have the pleasure and honor of knowing you a little bit better than some of our guests, would you be up for sharing something of your story? How did you get to this point into being the author and the business coach? And what can you tell us? How'd you get here?
How I got here is backwards. Most people do everything in linear progression forwards. I tend to do everything backwards and non-linearly. So being born clairvoyant, I was already trying to help people by the time I was 2 years old. By the time I was 14 years old, I already had a full practice seeing paying clients. So I started my business really, really early on, and I've had many businesses still after that, all successful. The reason for that is because I naturally used my power and uniqueness to create what I wanted. And what I've been noticing is that a lot of people that came to me as clients, they had this amazing magic within them. They had something that was unique, but they didn't know how to either talk about it, how to show up in it, how to own it even. Sometimes they were hiding it even from themselves. So it became kind of like my passion, like, well, it's easy for me to connect the dots, including to wealth, from being able to showing up as yourself. But for other people, that was not easy. So that's how I became first a life direction coach. Like I was helping people understand their purpose and who they meant to be and their soul mission. And then from there, it kind of went into applying it onto their material life, because many of my clients were business owners. So they would come to me with stuff like, oh, thank you so much for helping me with my messaging. I changed that and now it sells so much better. Or thank you so much for helping me with modifying how I would speak about this in my branding. I was able to close this contract. contract. And I'm like, I'm doing what? I'm doing branding, market positioning, messaging. Like I didn't even know what the words were. So I had to figure out what it all means and of course get a business education myself and all this other stuff. But that kind of was a natural back end education for me. But the forward part was always this unique thing that I know that if you have something special within you, you should be able to make money doing that very thing. And that's what I ended up doing for people. And as far as writing books, that's actually kind of funny because when I was in school, my teacher told me, Eugenia, never ever please write anything. You're really bad at it. So then, me being true to myself, I went and became best-selling author of 4 books because I just don't like when somebody tells me what to do. So that is exactly what I help my clients with, is like find what is true to you and do that well. And then let's see how we can help the world through doing that, because in the end of the day, it's all about service anyway, not money.
Wow, beautiful. Well said. So I heard part of what you said, like you're like Hogwarts for business owners in some way. But let's go back though, because 2 years old, you realized you were a clairvoyant. Is that right?
I've always known I'm clairvoyant, but by the time I was, I think 3.5 is when I finally realized that people don't see what I see. I remember standing in the doorway with one of my non-physical friends, and my father was trying to understand what I was saying, and I was describing what my friend says. And my father was saying, okay, I see you, I see the doorway. There's nobody else here. And that's where I realized that people only see the things I can bump into. And the rest of the stuff, which is like 99% of what I see, people actually don't see. And that's where it became clear that like, okay, I'm different. And then I had to make some choices. Like, what do you do with that? You can say, okay, that means I'm crazy and they all right and I'm wrong. Or you can say, well, they all wrong and I'm the only one that's right. Or you can say, well, we both are right. They just see what they see because of their range, and I have a different range of perception. So that's the one I settled on. And by the time I was 14, I was helping people see what I see, but they don't, from the standpoint of let's make your life better. And surprisingly, people wanted to know. Like all my clients were grown up adults at the time, and I was 14 years old. So that's how I know, by the way, that it's a charge that matters, like your energetics, your personal power, your conviction, your ability to be aligned, not anything else. Because people tell me like, oh, well, in business, you need to like have this perfect message, or you have to have perfect branding, or I don't know, glamorous pictures or something. I was 14 and I was able to make money. So with grown up people paying me for my wisdom. That's because it has nothing to do with all this imagery. It has to do with who are you and what are you actually delivering. And if you are aligned and if you have the gift, that's what people would come to you for. The key is to own the thing and then speak from that place, not from all the conditioning and imprinting that we get, unfortunately, programmed with.
Wow. Okay, cool. So there are lots of questions coming up from what you just said for me, and I'm sure we're going to head into some more specifics around business, though. Something in what you said sparked for me, I think, one of the greatest challenges for people. I love what you said about you said it in different words, but how many people tend to downplay their uniqueness, or what was it in the title in your book, inner badass magic, something like that. And you, when you were 3.5, was it 3.5? You were in the doorway with your father, right? And you came to that realization, like, I can go with this way, I can go with this way, but yet somehow you had the knowledge, the energetics, the confidence to trust yourself and your experience. And so many people in general in life don't have that. And specifically with clairvoyant or other, say, spiritual gifts, don't have that. How did you have that? And how can other people have that?
Well, I think that has to do with just a different contract. We all have a specific contract when we come into life. And some contracts are just really unique, which I happen to be one of those. I did not fall asleep. So most people, especially clairvoyants, the reason that they have difficulty owning their truth and owning how, like, what they see that it's real and that kind of stuff is because they don't see it from the beginning of their life. Or if they do, they kind of forget by the time they're 2, and then they have to reawaken into that later on in life. I did not have the full asleep part. I sort of like remain awake the whole time. That doesn't mean that it was easy. I went through my own phase of, well, maybe I should just hide that, because obviously people, it doesn't work out for me very well socially. People think I'm a witch. People think there's something wrong with me. People are afraid of me. I get ostracized and bullied and all this stuff. So then I try to fit in by just not talking about it. But that doesn't work either, because if you have power and a gift, it still shows up. So people would find me anyway, come to me in secret and try to still get the answers. There were a couple of times when I tried to get away from doing this spiritual direction in my life, like when we immigrated to United States and I was working as a cashier in a store, because we were just like no money at all for food. So we were just doing whatever we could to survive. And I was not mentioning that I can see things. I was just like, okay, I'm going to go to college. I'm just going to make some money and like, I'm going to be okay. And then people would somehow find out, and I would be in my lunch break and people would come and stick $20 bills in my apron. Please tell me answer to this question. Please help me understand what I'm here to do. So it's like, my soul was just attracting them. I couldn't get away from it. So I think the main thing is I did not try to fit in, because I didn't that was not my priority. And I think that's where the big shift is for most people, is if you don't try to be accepted, you cannot be rejected. If you don't try to be liked, then you don't have to worry about not being liked. And I didn't care if I'm not liked or not accepted, because my main goal is service. I care much more about helping somebody see the truth of themselves and arriving to the next level of their conscious awareness in that moment. And I kind of don't care if they like me right now. Like that was never a priority. Because of that, I was able to be a little bit more direct and bold and kind of show up in my power and not worry so much about what would it mean for my internal, I wouldn't respond to it the way that I think most people would, because I didn't doubt what I see, because I never not saw it. It's sort of like if you see in color and everybody tells you, well, the world is black and white, would you agree that it's black and white? Probably not. You would still think that, well, it's color for me, even if you see it in black and white. So if on another hand, though, you saw it in color sometimes, but then it turned off and you saw it black and white for a long time, and then you started to wake up again to seeing it in color, yeah, you might doubt the color. So I didn't have the black and white part. That's why for me, the doubt didn't happen. But that's also why I said that it's more about unique contract. Like one part of my contract is this intense certainty of truth. Like I hold that really strongly in my field. And a lot of times, like clients that work with me afterwards, when I say like, what was the most valuable thing, hoping to hear something about how I help them with their market positioning, let's say, or messaging, I hear things like, well, it's just being in your presence. It's like just the certainty you hold for the vision and possibilities. Like, wow, that like changed my life, because I can almost like by osmosis get that in my field, vibrate like that, and then embody it for myself. So that's a more of a unique contract. But as far as like how can somebody else be in their own certainty, I would say by trusting what they're getting. And then instead of looking for, is it real, is it not real, which is when a lot of people go like, did I really get it? Did my energy guide really speak to me? Is my intuition really telling me to do class on this topic or something like that? Instead, I would go with more like, what does it mean now? Like, and then what? Like, if I take it as, yeah, sure, let's say it happened. Who cares if it's real guide or if it's your intuition or if it's something else that told you? But now what? Do you actually still want to do it? Does it feel like uplifting? Does it feel like it's going to help? Does it feel like it's going to move you forward, even if you're scared? Or does it feel like it's more self-minimizing and hiding and whatever? So then, it's your fear talking. So self-trust comes from following through on your own convictions. It's not something that magically some people have more trust and others don't. It's just the more you follow through, the more you can trust yourself. And like I follow through 100% on everything I choose. And I choose very much like it's an actual choice and it's a decision. It's not like, well, maybe, and then, well, maybe I kind of whizzle out of it. It's like, no, if I said yes to something, that's a yes for me. And for a lot of people, when they say yes to something, they kind of like half-assed say yes, and the other side doesn't really want to, and they didn't deal with the internal dilemma. They just went with what they think they should do, and that's how then they don't follow through or they procrastinate and whatever, and then they wonder why they don't trust. Well, because you don't follow through on your own decisions. So if you want this level of certainty and trust, including in your own gift, then you have to follow through on what you're getting and see where it leads you.
Yeah, beautifully said. I mean, I think on some level, what you just said is you have certainty and you have trust in yourself. You have confidence if you simply do what you say you're going to do, right? I mean, it is, and that's so much of what I work with for myself and with my clients is if you said it, you did it, right? There's a great line from James Allen in his book As a Man Thinketh, and he says, "Successful people come quickly to decisions and are slow to change them. Unsuccessful people are slow to make decisions and are quick to change them." And that comes to mind from what you described, which is, it sounds like for you, if you get the message wherever it comes from, right? Social media, guides, angel, whatever, you get the message, you say, is it a yes or a no for me? And if it's a yes, that's it. You don't go back on it. Is that right?
Yeah, and it's also then what do you do with it? Like, don't give it the higher meaning on every step because that's kind of ridiculous. Like, oh, this means I'm divinely ordained to do this message thing. Like, come on. It could be just that right now, this is what feels right. But once you make the step, you will know. Sort of
Hmm.
like your guides, universe, your soul, spirit, whatever bigger thing you believe is, can only course correct you if you're in motion.
Yeah.
If you're standing still, your guides are standing over there saying, well, my human is waiting, we would love to help, but we can't because she's not doing anything. So the same thing for whatever bigger power you believe in that's out there, it can only direct you if you're moving.
Hmm.
So making decisions, even if they micro commitments, and then making steps in those directions, then you will be course corrected. So you never have to worry about is it the right decision or the wrong decision, because you will know by where you're bumping into and what responses you're getting. You will start getting signs and answers from life. This is actually where it goes to soul design, like how we are made. Every person has unique soul design, and understanding how you meant to make your decisions and what is your bigger mission. That's actually what creates this ease and flow and momentum in your life.
Nice, beautiful. Okay. Oh, juicy. Lots to talk about there. So let me rewind for a second though, because you've spoken a couple times about contracts, and I have a feeling I know what you're speaking about, though I'm not sure that everybody necessarily does. So how do you define a contract? You spoke about your contract. What do you mean by that?
Well, I call them soul contracts. And I look at it as in before you incarnate, your soul makes a specific deal. That deal is about what you're here to learn and how you're here to serve. So it's always two-sided. It's never just like, oh, this is your life and you contract with some specific person. That's actually pretty rare that it's specific like that. It's
Hmm.
usually more about what are you here to learn and some people that will help you learn that. And how are you here to serve and some people that need the gift that you're bringing. This is how you know that as let's say a coach, there are specific clients that already pre-sign up to be your clients if you fully show up in your gift, because universe is a very efficient place. It would never put you on the planet with a gift without giving somebody to you who needs the gift that you brought. So
Hmm.
the reason we have a gift is so we can serve through it. So there are specific people who requiring that frequency, which is where it gets back to the energetics of the soul design and being in the actual correct frequency, not just business strategy, but the other side, the energetics linked to that. So the soul contract is sort of like a design of your life, and that links to soul design, how you're made. So let's say your contract could be to learn to have clear boundaries. Finally, maybe you had like lifetimes of issues with boundaries overstepping, whatever, and you feel like a victim and people use you or trick you or whatever. Well, this time you meant to like have a clear boundary, figure out how to do it without overpowering and yet standing in your power. And your service might be teaching others, let's say, how to be in the clear boundary, because you now are an expert in all the wrong parts about the boundary and all the right parts about the boundary because you learned the lesson. So that would be the contract. And then a soul design will be, how does that fit into your being?
Hmm.
Like, are you meant to move fast? Are you meant to move slow? Are you meant to move in linear progression in your life, like one step and that covers the next step? Or are you meant to go sort of in a non-linear path, like a scenic route? Are you meant to deepen in and sit in something very deeply in order to comprehend it? Or are you meant to click in, and as long as you got the gist of it, move on? Like that's enough for you for what you need to assemble. Because in the end of the day, we're all here to serve. So what is the most efficient way for you to serve? Like for me, it is to speak and to be me. So if I would self-minimize, if I would try to fit in and be like appropriate good girl, or whatever the idea is of whatever people think that, coach could be, let's say, if I would be hiding my clairvoyance or the access that I have or energetics understanding and not saying that truth and just sticking to business strategy, which I'm very good at, but just like that without the other part, that would not actually be of service. Because my highest service comes from me resonating, being all of me and not hiding it. Somebody else might have a different variation of how they meant to not hide. And I mean, my clients don't all look like a copy of me. That's not what we're doing. We all have different temperaments. But understanding what is this natural sort of thing you came here to do, your soul contract, and how you came to do that, which is your soul design and your mission, and out of that, which gift you brought, which is your soul expertise. That then gets layered into your material life to create something here.
Beautiful. I love it. Thank you. Okay, so you've spoken a few times about service, the importance of service, the value of service. I think you actually said that that's why we're here, or at least one of the main components of why we're here. How did you arrive at that awareness? That feels to me like something, for me personally, I did not get that. My early upbringing was this conditioning that it's all about what I can get from life, from other people. That's what I learned in the beginning. It took me a lot of hitting my head against the wall and teachers and lessons before I came into a different orientation. How did you learn that important piece?
Well, as you remember, I do everything backwards. So I came in with service as my main thing, and I didn't know anything else. I was always there for other people. I was always helping other people. I was always seeing what is missing in their life and how I can help it. And actually, by the time I was in my 20s, late 20s, was the first time I even realized that I can be selfish. Like, what about me? What do I even want? And I never even asked myself that. So I had to learn how to be selfish. I had to learn how to change what I do a little bit to accommodate myself. And that's actually part of why I modified my business, because I used to have a business where I would be booked like years ahead and all that, but I was working 12-hour days, 6 days a week. And it was exhausting. I was dying inside, but I was helping people. I mean, they were raving about how much their lives changed. But even though I was doing my soul mission and serving, I forgot to include myself. And because of this, I was not happy. I actually went to burnout, and burnout 3 times by the time I finally realized, okay, I have to figure out how to include myself. And then when I started to question, well, what do I want? Well, I actually am like crazy introvert. I don't necessarily like to hang out with people to the extent I was doing that. So I realized, I would like to just have few clients, go really deep with them, and then teach larger communities. Like I rearranged my whole business. And when I did that, not only that financially that went up much more, but space-wise, like now I work 1 to 2 days a week, and I generate income that, I don't know, 10 times, 20 times more than whatever it was back then. And I'm happier, I'm vibrant, like I have energy. When before I was kind of like exhausted a lot. So I think my clients are benefiting much more by having me the way that I am now than the way I was. And I also shifted who I worked with, because I chose to be more selfish in a sense, because service was kind of automatically there. And I realized that I serve better if I work with leaders of communities instead of with members of communities, because my natural design is I'm such a leader that like I can't not be a leader. I can't turn it off. So working with leaders helped me not have to minimize my power, because they were also powerful. So we could be equal. And that felt so much better. And I could help these people do their job so much better because I know how to do it. Like I'm an expert on leadership, and that helped me feel much more secure in myself. Because I was working with somebody who was doing similar thing in a sense, and just maybe were a few steps behind me and needed to go forward. So as far as like for other people, as far as service and selfishness balance, I think that this would be like there's personal needs within each design, and then there's a service component. And most people automatically focus on personal needs because they're not fulfilled.
Hmm.
So that's not unique to like you, let's say that you had to learn, like, let's say more of the service. It's actually kind of natural. I do everything backwards. So I came in with the personal needs so muted down that the service part was always louder. That's why that was my guiding light. And as I got older, like in my 30s, late 30s, 40s even, I started to amplify more of the personal needs. But for most people, it's the other way around. Personal needs are louder because they're not fulfilled. They're screaming in your ear saying, pay attention to me. And that's why we focus on what can we get? How can I fill up this, whatever it is on the inside? And that's where, if you're a conscious person, you either go to therapy or you hire a coach or you do self-help books or something, but you advance yourself to learn how you can fulfill your needs. And especially in business, like if you are a coach and you show up into the world saying, I'm going to help my clients, but you internally unfulfilled, it's just like in the airplane, right? Put the mask on yourself first before you help somebody else. So if you are unfulfilled, you're going to not be able to be of service to the extent that you wish you could be. And that's the why you want to do personal work. Like that's my firm belief, is that every person who's trying to be a coach or a mentor or anything out there from that capacity has to do personal mastery work. Because if you don't, you're going to go out there hungry, hoping that the clients will somehow fill you up. And that is a very much incorrect relationship with the marketplace.
And plus simply hypocritical, right?
Well, let's assume that.
Yeah, I'm with you. So I love what you said, and I'll ask you something more specific. I'm curious though. You gave the example earlier about, well, imagine if you came into life and one of your lessons was to learn about boundaries. Sounds like that might have been in some way related to you if you were giving all the time and then getting depleted. Is there one experience or a story from your past of when you realized you got to an edge in terms of your giving and that you were too far out of balance with that?
Boundaries were not actually my lesson. That's an example from someone else. For me, it was much more about sensitivity in how much I care. I would overcare and undercharge, and through that overgive, and then end up feeling used and sort of like unappreciated. And when I changed that is much more to like, okay, how much caring is appropriate for the price? I know it sounds really weird, but like if you think from the energetic standpoint of that, I started to pull back the amount of energetic caring I was doing. And by caring, I mean like holding them, looking at all the intricacy of their contract and details and everything, like how much I was giving. And I took away 10%, another 10%, another 10%, 50%, 80%, and the client didn't notice. And I realized, oh my God, I'm getting paid for barely 20% of what I'm actually offering. And the other part, I either should charge more and work with different client who can accommodate and want this amount of intricacy and caring, or I shouldn't be doing it. But this is where it comes to the uniqueness of each personality. Like I cannot turn off my caring. Like I cannot do less because they pay me less. Like I don't have that button. So for me, it's like I am what I am, which means I had to actually stop working with somebody who couldn't take in what I was giving them, only could take 10 to 20%, and instead only shift to working with the ones who could take fully. So that was my adjustment. And how I realized it's that, like what I was saying, is when I kept taking, I used 3 clients as my sort of guinea pigs on that, kept trying to take less and like withdraw. And I got to 20% and neither one of them noticed. And that's where I had my revelation, like, oh my God, this is either wrong clients or I'm doing wrong, or I have to like give less, or something's got to give here, because that alignment is not correct in the universal syntropy, not even in the financial business part, which is story in itself, but in the universal syntropy, because in the syntropy, whatever we give, we receive. There's a flow, and I was in entropy. I was giving and not getting back.
Yeah, beautiful. I remember coming into contact with Bert Hellinger years ago, who created family constellations. And he wrote a book with the title, The Hidden Symmetry of Love. And one of the things he asserted in there, and I'm curious how this relates to your experience, he said, when we give from the energetics of love, right? We give from the energetics of love, the person we're giving to has a natural inclination to give back in love. However, if they don't or can't, maybe for whatever reason, it creates an imbalance, which will then have that person in some way attempt to attack or bring the first person down. Does that make
Well,
sense to
yeah, I
you?
mean, you can look at it from the basic psychology. Like if you're speaking to somebody's higher self and their lower self is defending its position and says, well, I don't want to change. I don't want to grow up. I don't want you to talk to this higher part of this person because that's my kingdom is being invaded. So then that person, depending where their anchor personality point is, if it happens to be in the higher self, they will be like, thank you very much for the advice. I realize, yes, I was messing up over here. And thank you for pointing this out. But if their anchor point is in a lower self, they might bite your head off and feel justified doing it because they feel like they, defending their inner kingdom, which is actually negative, which is what I was running into a lot when I was a teenager because I did not know this part yet. That I kind of learned as I was growing up. But as a teenager, especially, I'm a truth teller. I would say what it is and quite often run into a negative response. And it took a while to understand that, okay, even though I'm trying to serve and speak to the right part and I'm not incorrect in what I'm saying, that person is not ready to hear it. So that's where it had to be modified. That actually goes back to what I do now with marketing and messaging, right? The messaging energetics is to speak to somebody who energetically is ready to hear what you are delivering, not somebody you have to educate about what you do for them to come to you, but somebody who frequency wise already arrived at the right component of receiving and just waiting for what you're gonna give them. And that changes messaging tremendously because then it creates pre-sold clients instead of somebody you have to convince or chase after.
Well, yeah, and fundamentally, I think what you're describing is the difference between marketing and sales, right? Like if you get to the root of the word, marketing is the way I think of it anyway, is speaking to the right people, right? And the right people energetically aligned or ready for what you have to give them. So you use the term, if I got it right, marketing energetics.
Messaging energetics.
Messaging energetics. Okay. So will you say a bit more about that? How do you help people to find that?
Well, first, let's define the terms a little bit. So business strategy, that's an overall, like how you're going to run your business. Marketing is how you're going to take your gift to the village, take it to the marketplace. Messaging is how you're going to talk about the thing that you do so that the people can understand and want to buy it. Sales is how you're going to show them why they need what you're offering and why you are the right one for them to go work with. So those are specific territories in business. I kind of do all of them. Like I focus on all four of them when I work with my clients. But since you're asking me here specifically on the messaging part, messaging, there are two components. One is more like mechanical, like how do you actually write copy or speak if you're doing it as a visual presentation. So there's some structures to that, of course, because we want to have certain progression. We want the participant who's listening or reading not to have to burn too many brain calories trying to understand what the hell we're trying to deliver. But it's supposed to be very easy, logical, and common sense as they follow through with what you're saying. So there's structure to that. That would be the masculine side. And then the more feminine side would be the nonlinear. That's the energetics. So that would be what frequency are you embodying when you're doing it? Because you can do a presentation when, let's say, you're talking about, well, I'm a confidence coach. I teach people how to be confident, but internally you're all freaked out about the presentation. How do you think that's going to show up? Even if your words are perfect, probably not so well, right? Because whoever's receiving it, even if they're hearing your words, they're feeling your energy. So half of the equation is off. And I would say it's more than half. So that's the energetics of the messaging. And if that part is off, then it doesn't really matter if you got the words perfect. And actually works the other way around, because I've seen that many times when my clients would show up with the right energy, like they anchor it, and they will mess up on their presentation and say the wrong words or go on some loop explaining it. And it doesn't matter. People sign up anyway, because energetics is more of what humans respond to first. And yes, long term, of course, if you want to have a business looking professional, you do want to have the structural part of your message done right and all that. So I'm not saying that that's not important. I'm just saying it's not what should come first.
Hmm. Beautiful. Yeah. Well, there's a great line from Emerson: "Who you are speaks so loudly, nobody hears a word you say." Right. So the language I use for it often is like, well, you can say this, you can do this. However, if you're being this, it's not going to work, right? You can't outdo who you are being. So I think similar concept, different language for it. So how, when you work with people who maybe have the right words or the right slides or the presentation, and then there's not the energetic match, the feminine side is not in alignment, how do you help them with that? What does that look like?
Well, first of all, we want to look as to, are they even going with the right message?
Hmm.
Because if somebody comes to me with their messaging, marketing all done up perfectly because they had a copy coach, that would be a red flag right there. Because chances are this has somebody else's energy on it, and they probably not even putting forward the right message. They putting forward whatever they think up in their mind versus whatever is actually part of their soul contract and their expertise. So that would be step one. Most clients who come to me, they don't have their messaging and marketing perfect. They actually trying to figure out how to do it, but they think that this is what they need to do, when
Hmm.
actually what they need to do is more of the energetics.
Hmm.
All of this, the root of both, the entire messaging is always goes back to, what are you messaging?
Hmm.
So this is the part that I think most people miss. They think, well, I'm messaging like, buy my program. I'm messaging that I do the service and come buy my service. That's not messaging. That's a really twisted bad sales. Like that's not at all what messaging is. Messaging is actually understanding what is your expertise, not whatever you studied, not whatever your skill is. Like you might be a confidence coach, let's say, or performance coach or something like that. That's what your skill is. You know how to help people step into higher performance and confidence, let's say. But your soul expertise could be that you are very grounded in the body and you have incredible amount of self-trust and you help others do the same.
Hmm.
That is not something you have learned. That is something that came pre-installed in your being.
Hmm.
Okay, if we figure out that, okay, that is the thing that actually your expertise and your skill is, let's say, performance and confidence, great. Messaging goes onto the expertise and then link to whatever it is that you're doing. So that would be, let's say, that person, instead of talking about how you need to create organized systems and order and then follow through on this thing, and then confidence comes from like having the script and playing the script a couple of times before you speak up or something like that, which would be, I don't know, maybe a coach would do. But instead you go with, where is it that you don't trust yourself? How are you not grounded in your presentation that when you speak, you forget the words? Or where you show up, you start wobbling instead of feeling confident? Then they can link it to what they actually do as a skill. So that's where the flip in the messaging happens. Once we know that, then learn the words that go with that. So that's the strategy. And the other side is the energetics. Are you actually embodying the thing that you're telling them that that's your expertise? Like, are you then grounded and whatever the other thing would be for them, like able to be in your energy, clear and whatever? If you are, and from that place you then deliver the message, now you're vibrating, or you can say embodying or being in the correct energy. And with the correct strategy, with correct words, that's where it starts working. This is actually kind of a shortcut to a high ticket market, because a lot of times when people do lower ticket marketing, none of the stuff I'm saying is as important, because you can
Hmm.
really do lower level marketing with really bad pushy sales and convincing and chasing after people. And as long as you put a lot on ads and you have like millions of people that click on the link and buy $27 product, you can probably still do that. But what I do is selling $10,000 programs, $30,000, $100,000 programs. Like that's a very different market. And to do that, what I'm talking about, as in getting clear on your gift and your energetics, is the key. Because without that and your own methodology uniquely built on that, you cannot sell anything past 10,000.
Hmm. Beautiful. Beautiful. Thank you. So expertise, you used that word very specifically a moment ago. And as I'm following what you're saying, it sounds to me like that's one of the fundamental key aspects is the discovering of that and bringing that forward in, right? And you, if I heard you right, you said that comes pre-installed. Did I hear you right?
Right.
Right. So am I following correctly that that's really like one of the fundamental building blocks of creating the success that people want?
Yeah, this is actually really good that you bring up this point, because when I started connecting my understanding from the spiritual side onto business, I used to think that a lot of it is just, well, you just don't know business strategy, like you just don't know marketing, like let me teach you these things and then you can go forward and it would work fine. Only to realize that no, it doesn't, because the client was not honing in to the right frequency. So again, I do everything backwards. So I started from sort of the end and then kept going in and in and in, deeper into the core of what drives the client, to find where do we need to actually anchor this. Like, what do I need to teach my client at the start to get them to the result that I want? And that's actually how I came up with my methodology. My methodology is called conscious future, create conscious future, right? Conscious future mastery. So we're literally building the future consciously. But how do you build the future? Well, you have to first know kind of where you're going, or you can get there. So that would be like, we start by understanding what is your design, what's your contract, what's your expertise. Without that, you can't go anywhere, because that is the future that you meant to embody, but you're not there yet. Then we look at like, okay, how does this show up in the marketplace? So what is the message? What is the market positioning? What is the way to organize this into your unique methodology so you can explain how you do this magical thing that you do, that you just now figured out that, oh, that's what I'm here on earth to do. Okay, now that we know what is it, who is this for, how do we market position this, how do we talk about it, and what is the method that you're using, we simply package that into whatever the offer is, put a price tag on it that's appropriate for the depths that you're going into. And now the sale part goes into like, okay, now we go out into the world and we figure out the pathway to go into the world based on the original design. Because some people are like meant to network. Other people are meant to never network. Like, I'm not a networker. If I try, I would burn out immediately. But I have some clients who are like awesome networkers. They could do it day and night. Some people are natural presenters, like I'm a presenter type. Some people are not. Some people are natural alchemists. They just sort of like make magic out of something, and like things happen and they don't know even how, but they have to be in specific positions for that to happen. Other people are collaborators. Some people are more technology and kind of mechanical, like they need to create a lot of back-end systems and automations. That's their main way sort of to go out there. So those people do great with ads, let's say, if they have everything else figured out. So we figure out what is your way to bring it into the world and to bring in the leads through the sales and then into all of this. But now, because the front end is figured out with so much more clarity and intensity inside their body, now they know what they're doing. And then the rest becomes just like, okay, we'll do one thing or two things that work really well for you instead of trying to do everything. And that's where you get this congruency. Like, this is how you know that, okay, you got this, because now all of this works together. So I had to figure out that when I was trying to teach them the systems and the lead gen and like the packaging and that kind of stuff, what I was missing was they didn't know the first part. And without that, all this other stuff, I mean, I'm an expert and I can teach you every possible strategy out there, but so what? It doesn't go anywhere, because they would be in procrastination and resistance. They would be scared, or they would do it and it would be done like half-assed and kind of like not really, energetically right. And I know that when somebody's committed to doing something well, and yet they have this kind of a response, that means something is off, right? Because if you're procrastinating, you need to really look as to why. Most of the time, it's because you're bumping into some fear, but quite often in this bigger sense, it's because the anchor point, let's say, is off. Like, what is all of this hinged on? What's the key pin like in this? If you don't know what that is, then all this technology, lead gen, and whatever other strategies, they fall flat. So that's why I figured out in my methodology that we need to look as to what is the future that you want. What does it look like, feel like, smell like? How are you in it? All of that. Maybe not so much details, because sometimes people don't know, but what is the experience you're going to have? And then I get my clients through this specific exercise of utilizing quantum fields. So this is nonlinear quantum creation, where we connect the dots. They anchor in the future, like we sort of throw the fishing rod out there into the right spot where we find the frequency we want, and then the current frequency. And then, like, if you imagine you have a piece of paper and there's point A and point B, you can draw a line. And this is how most people get to point B, right? They follow the line, and the line would have steps, 1, 2, 3, whatever, to get here. And what I do is I take the paper and I bent it so the two dots are just touching. There, it's a shortcut. There is no direct line. It becomes like a portal or whatever you want to call it to just arrive in there. So that energetic shift is vibratory. And that's part of the thing that we do, is to find where is the discrepancy between the future you and the current you, so you can create your future consciously. And then out of that, we build the structural parts of the business.
Okay, cool. Now we're talking, getting into some quantum perspectives. I love it. And so in some way, what you're talking about is collapsing time, right? And it's great. I love that you made the segue into what you're just speaking about in the quantum realm, because earlier when you were talking about all the different components of, in sloppy speak, all the stuff that people need to figure out, I was thinking to myself, like, if I was somebody new to business and listening to you speak, I'd be really excited. And also like, oh my God, there's so much for me to figure out. And it feels like the last part you got to in some ways is a shortcut. Would that be accurate?
Yeah. I mean, it's sort of like there's endless amount of stuff to figure out when you have your own business. So as an entrepreneur, you kind of assume you're setting yourself up for the life of continuous learning, growing, and always figuring shit out. But at the same time, if we go back into like, what do you actually need? The only thing you need is, what is your soul design? What is your soul expertise? If you get that, okay, out of that comes your message, your market positioning, your offer, how you talk about it, and even lead generation strategy. Then, yeah, you learn strategies like how to make each one of these pieces work, depending on what you know, what you don't. Like sometimes I have clients that come to me that they already know how to record a webinar, how to do lead gen, like they already know like the businessy stuff, but they're missing this core piece. We realign it, and then they can go and kind of like adjust 1-2 degree shifts in all their automations, marketing, whatever, and it's already kind of there. It's just a minor adjustment, because the main part they're adjusting is the energetics and then how they show up in whatever it is they're doing, versus somebody else who comes to me and they like don't have any of these structures. Maybe they never even gone out there and did a presentation or a webinar or anything. They don't know those things. So yeah, then obviously there's more learning depending on which level of business you are. Like if you're trying to sell your first $10,000 program, that's a very different client than somebody who's been selling, $30,000-$40,000 programs and looking to elevate themselves to a next level of influence. And I have programs for both types, but yeah, there's different amount of what you need to learn. But I think most people overwhelm themselves with like, oh my God, I need to know all of this. And my advice is always, what is it that you need to know now? And then the next moment, what do you need to know now? And then the next moment, what about now? And it's not everything, because there's no way you need to know everything in every moment. So now, do you know what your expertise is in your design? If you don't, well, then that's what you need to know. Once you know that, well, do you know what is the specific type of a person, like psychographics of that person, not demographics, but psychographics? If you don't, well, then that's what you need to know. Once you know that, okay, now you know who is this for? Do you know how to talk about it? Do you have a method that's clearly defined? You don't? Okay, well, then that's one thing you need to know now. And then after that, do you have an offer? Is it put together into something that makes sense and connected to everything we just did? If no, well, then that's what you need. Next thing, is it priced? If it's priced and you love the pricing, awesome. If it's priced and you feel icky about it, like it's too low or too high or too weird or not aligned or whatever, well, then you need to do something with pricing. Next thing is sales. Can you sell the thing? Do you know how to sell in integrity from the heart, feeling good about it? Or the only version of sales is the typical masculine, pushy, convincing, and kind of like a cobra over the rabbit type of a sales that you might have seen online. If that's all you know, well, then yeah, that's the next thing you need to learn how to do sales properly. But with my clients, we do all of this in 4 months. So this is not necessarily something that takes a lifetime if you have somebody who energetically has the key. And like I'm a shortcut. I kind of always joke about that. Like I literally am. So you can come in and just like not know any of this and come out 4 months later and actually be selling $10,000, $15,000 programs and go like, oh my God, this is so easy. Because it's the pieces that get assembled, but they get assembled in the right time. The right timing is very important. If you try to do something ahead of time that you're not ready for, you actually going to fail and then think it's your fault. That is a very common thing that I hear when people come to me saying like, well, I've tried this thing with this webinar and this automated webinar and the ads and this, and it wasn't working. Or I tried this sales thing and I even hired a sales rep and that wasn't working. And I'm like, you're missing 300 pieces before that. So somebody was selling you a strategy that's for a business that's already like at 500,000 or more, and you haven't even reached your first 100,000 in revenue. So that is not appropriate strategy. It's not a bad strategy. It might be perfect for you when you get there, but you're not there yet. So understanding what is appropriate now and applying that, like, let's say if you're doing a webinar and your energetics are right, your messaging is right, the topic of the webinar is right, and you have 5 people that showed up live. Some people would call it a total failure. Like, oh my God, I was hoping for like 1,000 or 500 and there's like 5 people. Oh my God. But what if you are aligned? What if the people are right? What if you selling a $10,000 program? What if 2 of them sign up? You just made $20,000 from a 90-minute investment of time and effort. So shifting how you think of where you are at your business and what you actually need to do. A lot of times it's these small connection points, but if they are aligned, you can have a great business generating $250,000 or $500,000 with very minor amount of investment of time and energy because you're doing the things that are aligned.
Well said, Eugenia, the shortcut. I love it. Thank you. So time's flying along for us. Oh my goodness, we could talk for hours. And let's pause though, because if I'm remembering correctly, you have kindly brought a gift for the audience. Is that right?
Yes.
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 So would you like to say that? Yeah.
Yeah, this is a mini series that would help you understand a lot of these complicated things that I was talking about. So if you are somebody who's selling intangible transformation, like your personal transformation coach, you're a life coach, you're somebody who helps them maybe connect to themselves in a relationship. Maybe you do something with transformation of their spiritual nature. And you're kind of wondering, like, is this even sellable at the high ticket? I can tell you, yes, it is. And that's what I do with my clients. Like literally, they come to me selling $100 sessions. They exit selling $10,000, $12,000 programs. So yes, it's totally possible. And in this mini series, you will see it kind of laid out for you. So it's a methodology that I use and my clients use to magnetically attract to us pre-sold high ticket clients for offers of like 5,000, 10,000, 30,000, and so on, without having to constantly chase after leads, without having to compete, without having to constantly like sell yourself and convince somebody to buy, which nobody really wants to do, right? So this is how you are able to bring towards you somebody that is in the right frequency. Even if you don't have a like huge following right now, maybe your list is not really big, maybe you don't have a sales team and you never want one, like you don't want to hire people. It's all possible without even having to do new program launches all the time and constantly like do all this thing that you hear like a noise on the social media as to this is what you need to do. And I'm here to tell you that's not actually what you need to do if you want to sell high ticket for personal transformation offers. So expandyourwealthcapacity.com, go there. It will show you how to become ideal go-to choice for your clients. So then they choose you and you don't have to convince them. How to convert the leads into buyers in a sales way that is very heart-centered and doesn't feel icky. How to let go of the typical bro marketing type of strategies of pushing and convincing and instead sustainably grow, which I think a lot of times what women actually are seriously looking for. Like we want to grow in a way that feels sustainable, that feels like we can handle it without having to cut our life apart, right? So that will show you how to do that. So sign up, it's free, and you get to see it's like 10-minute videos, really short. So very minimal investment of time, because I like everything like a shortcut, and you get to understand like, oh, that's how it fits into my life and business.
Perfect. What a generous, kind offer. Thank you, Eugenia. And I'm not going to spell it out. I know some of y'all are listening, not watching. There, it's all the regular spelling of those words, though. Expandyourwealthcapacity.com. You can do it, rewind, and hear it again if you need to. And, well, since we are nearly at the end of our time together, Eugenia, I think it's time for me to ask you the big question, the final question, the impossible question. Would that be okay?
Yes.
And I say impossible because, I mean, holy moly, you've got such a wealth of experience. You've got connection to realms beyond the physical realm. There's, an infinite amount that you could bring forth. And what I'm asking you to do is distill that all down to one thing. So if you had one thing to offer to help our audience be more vibrant, more successful, to create their vibrant life, what's the one thing that you share?
Trust that if there is something in you that is calling you forward, like if you have a big vision, maybe you believe you meant to really help people transform their life or transform human collective, or maybe you feel like you meant to be much more visible and have like lots of people following you with a specific message and a mission. If you have that in your being, just know that because universe is very efficient place, it put it in there for a reason. So it is real. It's not just like a pipe dream. It's something that you just need to figure out steps to make that happen. But it's already possible for you, because if it wasn't possible, you would not be able to even envision it. So trust that if you have that vision, that means it's possible for you. And then it's just, are you willing to do what it takes?
Beautiful. I love that. So trusting that it's there, right? That's the Napoleon Hill thing where he said, if you can believe it, if you can see it, you can achieve it, right?
Yep.
And thank you so much for not only taking this time to be with us. I really appreciate that. Also for being such a great model of the courage to be yourself, to create, and sharing so much with me and with our audience. Thank you for being here.
Well, thank you very much, Daniel.
Yeah, total pleasure. All right. And y'all in the audience, thank you. You are the heroes. This is all for you. So again, would you please take one of the 487 gold gems that Eugenia brought? Take at least one of those and say, yeah, I'm going to get into that right now. I'm going to try it out. I'm going to put it into place in my life. Go to expandyourwealthcapacity.com. Check out her free gift mini series. And again, thanks for being here, y'all. I love you. I appreciate you. Please, please, please live into your vibrancy. It makes a difference for you. It makes a difference for the world. And we will see you on the other side. Aloha, y'all. Oh, wait. There it is. Hey, wait, here it is. Mahalo for tuning in to the Art of Vibrant Living show, y'all. I'm Daniel Aaron, and may you live with great vibrancy.